Like Brothers, a Lion King fanfiction by Lionkingview. Come on, Dad, I promise I won't complain. Simba was following his father to an unknown location. Due to him having gotten himself in trouble again, Simba would now be punished. The thing was, his father, Mufasa, still hadn't told him what the punishment was going to be.
Son, patience is a virtue,
responded Mufasa to his son's complaints. The trouble Simba had gotten himself into was the kind of trouble he could have avoided, but alas, his stubbornness had reigned supreme over his reason. In the end, Simba and another cub by the name of Kahisha had gotten into a fight which had also, more or less involuntarily, involved Nala's twin brother Mitu. To say things got a bit out of hand was an understatement. You won't tell me where we're going, you're not telling me how I'm going to be punished, and now you're Mufasa shot his son a tense glare that indicated that the next words out of the cub's mouth should be chosen with care. Simba stopped dead in his tracks, swallowed, and with a sheepish grin tried to remodel the sentence. Boldly stating that I should be patient, he finished, looking expectantly at his father, whose look had turned from intimidating to amused.
See, son, you don't need to rely on crude language to voice your complaints. Crude language that I'm certain you probably learned from your dear uncle,
said Mufasa as he continued walking. Simba too had started to move again. But don't you only care because Mom gets peeved at you if you don't? He asked with genuine curiosity. Mufasa sighed. That was the problem with kids, he thought. At first they're cute and adorable. They can be easily tricked and they don't talk back. Then they start to talk and to actively listen, which is good if you want them to listen, not so good if they're eavesdropping on an argument.
No, said Mufasa, I'm not obligated to remind you of proper language. I remind you of proper language because that is also part of being a king. And since you will be a king one day, you need to watch your mouth.
Mufasa felt satisfied with the answer that he had given. How am I supposed to do that? Take my eyes out and turn them around? Simba asked jokingly. Mufasa sighed yet again.
You know full well that's a figure of speech, he said, slightly annoyed.
Well, in any case, didn't you once curse during a diplomatic meeting? I believe you called the leader of another tribe an irresponsible... Before Simba could finish the sentence, his father interrupted him.
That was completely different.
Mufasa tried to parry. Simba, however, wouldn't let go. But you did curse as part of being a king. He grinned with glee, knowing that he had just caught his father red-handed. Mufasa stopped, turned around, faced his son, and looked at him with a fatherly smile, and then said,
All right, you win. I'm actually a bit proud of you, Mufasa said while stroking his son's head. You used logic to weaken my argument. However, I want you to keep something in mind. Simba listened intently. Then Mufasa said, Nobody likes a smartass. Then he turned back to the trail and kept walking. Wait, why is it okay if you curse but I don't? Asked Simba, now confused again. Mufasa just laughed and responded. Well, the actual reason for that is simple. It's because I'm your dad, and for now, you'll do what I tell you. Simba rolled his eyes and kept walking. After a few more minutes of walking, the cub and his father came to a halt. They were standing in front of a curious rock formation. It resembled an arena of sorts. At a very small scale, of course. Simba started to get nervous. Did his father want him to fight some rogue lion as a punishment? If not, then why were they here? While we wait for the others to arrive, I can't help but ask, how did your little confession go? Mufasa was referring to the night before, when Simba had finally gathered up the courage to tell Nala that he loved her. This was followed by, well, technically not his first kiss, but his first kiss with a girl. It wasn't easy, but I managed to tell her.
Your advice was very helpful, Simba replied. Mufasa nodded and smiled.
That's good to hear, son. I'm proud of you.
Simba gave a prideful smile and said, Thanks, Dad. Just then, 2 voices could be heard approaching. That is ridiculous, Mom. Let me down. I can walk on my own. It was Kahisha, the cub with whom Simba had gotten into a fight. His mother was carrying him with her mouth. You will only run away, she responded, as articulate as was possible at the moment.
Oh, Musa, it's so good to see you. Seems to me like Kahisha wasn't quite as willing to come as you had hoped, said Mufasa to Kahisha's mother. She put Kahisha down and responded by bowing to the king.
It's good to see you too, Your Highness. And yes, you're so right, she said while giving her son a stern look. My little Kishi didn't want to go, but rules are rules. And he was just as much at fault as your son for this ordeal.
Mufasa nodded in agreement. A giggle escaped Simba. Kahisha looked at him while squinting his eyes.
What's so funny? He asked with a hint of anger in his voice. Your mum calls you Kishi?
That's adorable, mocked Simba. Kahisha growled at him.
Is the princess now getting cocky?
Before the 2 cubs could get more riled up, Mufasa stepped between them. That's enough of you two. You have more than enough time to sort out your differences over the next 3 days. The 2 cubs looked at the king in bewilderment.
3 days?
Before the king could answer, another lioness came into view from the other side of the rock formation. She was a bit younger than Umusa, but undeniably a full-grown lioness.
Igunya, you made it,
said the king, greeting the lioness. Both Kahisha and Simba knew Igunya. A few months ago, she had been eager to volunteer to watch over the cubs while the other lionesses had been out hunting.
Now that you are here, I hereby entrust you with my son,
said Mufasa, much to Simba's surprise. Just as I do, said Umusa.
What?
said Simba and Kahisha in unison. Mufasa and Umusa started to make their way back towards Pride Rock. Mufasa looked back, quickly to add,
Igunya will tell you to everything you need to know about the Ndlela sa Bazalwane.
Kahisha and Simba looked at each other in bewilderment, and then at Igunya.
Oh, you two are gonna love this, she chuckled.
Chapter 2 Ndlela sa Bazalwane.
Alright, so Mufasa told me the abridged version of your little kitty fight, said Igunya with a smug smile. She had chosen these words to instill precise irritation in the 2 cubs. Having been previously put in charge of taking care of a variety of the pride's cubs for a few evenings whenever the lionesses had gone hunting, she knew a few tricks to get the little ones to obey her without having to physically ground them. She knew that every cub could be easily baited into obedience with the recognition of supposed grown-up behavior, whatever on earth that meant. Reaffirming that childishness could also help, be it through the indication that the previously mentioned maturity seemed to be lacking. In short, most cubs obeyed more easily if it meant that they were already big boys, or big girls, just conveyed with more nuance. This was exactly what Igunya wanted to invoke when calling Kahisha and Simba's conflict a kitty fight. Kitty fight?
Responded Kahisha and Simba in unison.
Listen here, perhaps Princess Simba isn't the most experienced fighter, but it was...
started Kahisha, only to be interrupted by Igunya.
Did you just listen here, me? Young lion, I watched over you before, so you should know what happens if you keep this up, she said with just enough hint of a threat in her voice.
Kahisha swallowed.
You're gonna literally ground me for an hour, he responded. That's right. No manners equals no freedom of movement for you. The same applies to you, she said, turning to Simba.
Simba just nodded. Igunya could be very motherly in her attitude, but you better not cross her or she would become more authoritarian than the king himself.
Alright, as I was saying, I know what happened between you two, and I was therefore ordered to watch over you two while you partake in the Ndlela sa Bazalwane. It means the way of the brothers. It's a tradition from a really long time ago, Igunya said. To the king and queen, twins were born. One young lion named Margie and one named Moto. Margie and Moto were hard to tell apart right after birth, and so the king couldn't make a decision on which one had been born first. He therefore said that he would decide on it once the cubs had grown older. The cub, which showed the attributes of a leader, would be named the future king. As the cubs grew older, they got along with one another marvelously and always were at each other's side. That is, until they came to realize that only one of them could be king. They started to argue, and one day arguing wasn't enough, so they started to fight. The fight went on for hours. It took place right amidst this rock formation, said Igunya as she pointed to the arena-like rock formation. When the first rays of the sun touched the Pride Lands the next morning, both Moto and Margie had passed out. They were covered in bruises and scratches. Both of them came to it at exactly the same moment. Now that they saw what they had done, with every bruise and scratch throwing shadows in the morning sun, they were aghast. They stared at each other for minutes before they finally apologized to one another, and then started to talk. They talked of that which had made them fight, becoming king. They both realized that neither of them really wanted to be king as of right now, for they both held a deep worry in their hearts. They worried that they might disappoint their father. So they talked for another 2 days, only leaving the spot to drink and eat until they had drawn the conclusions they needed to draw. Moto would leave the Pride many years later and become leader of his own tribe. Margie became king of the Pride Lands, and the rest is obviously history. Igunya finished the story with a satisfied smile. So I take it you want us to talk things out? Wouldn't it suffice if I just said sorry to Simba? Interjected Kuhisha. Igunya looked at Kuhisha with amused doubt. As if you would actually mean it. I was a kid once too, and I know full well that if I actually wanted to apologize to someone, I would just do it. Being forced to apologize just meant that you weren't sorry. So to answer your question, Kuhisha, no, it wouldn't suffice. However, you are right. You two are supposed to talk it out. The Inlela Zabazavane normally takes 3 days to complete. You will mostly just interact with one another during this period of time. Short visits from friends and of course from your parents are allowed, but the point of this tradition is for you two to come to an understanding. You don't have to end up loving each other, but mutual respect should be the preferred outcome. Igunya paused to sort her thoughts out and was about to continue when Kuhisha started to talk again. But what if Princess Simba gets scared during the night and cries for his mommy? Taunted Kuhisha. Simba shot him an angry look and growled, Fuck you, Kuhisha. You're just a dumbass. Igunya sighed and interfered. Listen here, you two. You can both still fight about which one of you is the biggest mama's boy, but for now, you two will hear me out. I'm almost done. I myself will watch over you two for the duration of this ritual. Trying to run away will prove futile, given that, even if you manage to evade me, I'll tell your parents and we will be back to square one. Fighting in the physical sense will not be allowed. It might have been part of the initial ritual, but for obvious reasons, you two will not be allowed to fight until you collapse. I will lead you at least once a day to the waterhole, where you can have a drink and eat. We will obviously go together to the watering hole. Obey these rules and these 3 days will go by like nothing. With that being said, have fun. You are free to roam inside the rock formation at your will, finished Igunya and started to climb on top of the arena-shaped rock formation. Kuhisha and Simba still stood there, taken a bit aback by Igunya's directness. Come on, you two, no need to be shy. You'll have the next 3 days to get used to it, encouraged Igunya with a surprising motherly smile. Alright, ladies first, taunted Kuhisha as he gestured Simba to move. Squinting at Kahisha in anger and growling at him menacingly, Simba replied, "I'm not walking in first because you told me to. I do it because I want to." Kahisha followed suit, grinning victoriously as he once again had provoked the Prince of the Pride Lands. Kahisha, a cub with a sizable tuft of white fur on his head, regarded Simba with contempt. In his eyes, Simba was just a spoiled brat, someone whom he could easily verbally outmaneuver, a hoity-toity cub who was only asking to be put in his place. Kahisha knew that he had struck gold when he had found out about the prince's hobbies such as singing, dancing, and most importantly, hunting. A girl's hobby. Setting his gang on Simba was easy, especially when the prince became ever so easily defensive. Kahisha felt a certain rush in the knowledge that he could easily wind up the future king of the Pride Lands. Ganging up on him during the last few days had merely been the cherry on top. At times he asked himself if there was also jealousy motivating his actions, but he almost always disregarded these thoughts. Though, at times, there were nights when the doubt would linger like fog in the morning. Kahisha stepped into the middle of the rock formation where grass had grown massively. Igunya walked along the outer rim of the formation and watched the cubs like a sentinel. Kahisha decided to ignore her for now and lay down, putting his head on his crossed front paws. He observed a crawling bug through the tall grass. He knew that if he went full force on Simba now, his later insults would bear less fruit. The sun began to set over the Pride Lands and the stars came out. Neither Simba nor Kahisha had said a word since they had entered the formation. After a while, both cubs fell asleep. Igunya watched them snooze. One could almost forget about how obnoxious these two can be, she whispered to herself. Then she jumped down and lay in front of the formation entrance and fell asleep herself. Chapter 3 Verba Hac Nocte. Kahisha awoke in the middle of the night. Realizing where he was, he let out an annoyed grunt and looked over at Simba, who was snoozing peacefully. Then he looked around for Igunya. His eyes gazed her, blocking the entrance with a sleeping body. It was a weird feeling for Kahisha to be here without any of his gang members, or his mum. He felt an odd loneliness, a loneliness that would normally not rear its confusing head, but now it was here, and he wasn't sure of what to do about it. Normally he was surrounded by either his mum, who showed all the maternal love a mother could offer, or his friends, who respected his natural aura as a leader, a role that had helped him mask some insecurities. He felt reassured because he felt appreciated. Right now, though, he felt lonely. Igunya didn't hate him, but Kahisha knew that at the current time she was here because she was either ordered to or because she volunteered. Not someone who appreciated him, at least not to the degree that he was used to. Then there was Simba, the Prince of the Pride Land, that arrogant little... He didn't even bother finishing that thought. It basically would only spell out what he already knew. He didn't like Simba, and due to what had happened, Simba didn't like him. He looked up at the stars, and the cosmic eternity looked back at him, as if it was asking, now what? He knew that it would take some time for him to fall back asleep. As a very social cub, being surrounded by other lions helped him to relax and drift off into sleep easily. Sometimes it helped if he had someone to talk to. He sighed yet again, realizing that his options were thin. Then he made a decision. "Wake up, damn it!" These words rang into Simba's ears. He slowly awoke, a yet not very clear defined figure standing above him. "Nala?" he asked, barely awake. "Do I sound like a fucking girl to you?" asked the figure, which was now becoming clearer in Simba's vision. "Kahisha? Fuck off and let me sleep, you cunt. I'm too tired for your shit right now," Simba responded. "I just want to talk. I swear, I'm not gonna make fun of you for the duration of this conversation," Kahisha assured. "Why?" asked Simba, still disgruntled.
It helps me sleep," responded the older cub. "Good for you, but I'm normally awake when I talk, so tough luck," said Simba, turning to the other side. "Please, Simba, just a bit of chit-chat. It doesn't have to be long," said Kuhisha. Simba was suddenly wide awake. "Did you just say please to me?" he asked, genuinely confused. "Well, yeah," said Kuhisha, unsure of what to make of this. Simba gave an evil grin. "Could you repeat that, but put Your Majesty at the end of the sentence?" Now it dawned on Kuhisha what Simba was on about. "Seriously?" he asked. "It's up to you, Kuhisha. I am awfully tired, but you could at least make it worth my while," Simba said while retaining his grin. Kuhisha sighed once more and said, "Please, Simba, just a bit of chit-chat. It doesn't have to be long, Your Majesty." Simba chuckled. "Alright, that's enough for now. What do you want to talk about?" "Nothing in particular," said Kuhisha as he sat down next to Simba. "Talking just relaxes me. Ask me a question or some dumb shit." Simba thought about it for a second. He could go for a cheap shot and just piss Kuhisha off. Or... "Why do you hate me?" he asked. Kuhisha chuckled. "Hate isn't the right word. I just think it would be a shame if your arrogant ass wouldn't be put in its place every now and again. Plus, you're so easily irritated." "I'm not easily irritated. You're just being an asshole for no good reason," said Simba in an energetic hiss. "See what I mean?" said Kuhisha in amusement. You... Simba was lost for words. "What's the matter? Was that too fast for princes? Don't worry, I'll give you time to process," taunted Kuhisha. "You're such a prick," said Simba, trying to downplay his irritation. "What you gonna do? Tell Daddy? Oh wait, he ain't here. Is little Simba gonna cry now?" Kuhisha kept going. Simba was about to snap when he remembered something his mom had told him the night before. "But Mom, I just get so angry and I can't stop myself," Simba had explained to Sarabi. "Son, you should not let everything get to you so easily. Imagine what would happen if your father acted on every provocation. Okay, here is something that might help you calm down whenever you are in such a situation." She held up her right front paw and extended her claws. "If you're angry, you'll undoubtedly extend your claws involuntarily, but instead of using them, count them." "But I know how many claws I have," Simba argued. "I know, and you know that too, but by counting something, you will automatically be preoccupied long enough to calm down. You can take a deep breath and think about what to do next." Simba looked at his front paws, and to his surprise, they were actually extended. He counted them, and then looked up at Kuhisha again, who was surprised by the lack of immediate angry response. Then Simba took a deep breath, and to his amazement, he had the right words available. I thought about it. Crying. Sometimes I just want to roll up and weep forever, but then I realized that I would probably make things worse. Don't you feel like that sometimes?" Once those words had left Simba's mouth, he realized that he had just potentially given Kuhisha ammunition to start another verbal quip. Simba nervously waited for a reaction from Kuhisha. Surprisingly enough, Kuhisha was smiling. "What kind of a dumb question is that? Everyone feels like they want to cry sometimes. You're probably more than others, but that's another story." He finished with a shit-eating grin. "What's that supposed to mean? I don't cry that often, only when..." Simba had to stop himself mid-sentence. Kuhisha hadn't stopped grinning. "Go on. When do you cry?" Simba just scoffed. "Fuck you, Kuhisha. I thought you wanted to be talked to sleep or something, not piss me off," Simba said. Kuhisha hadn't even noticed how he was trying to provoke Simba yet again. At least until now. You're not wrong about that." Kuhisha contemplated. He thought about it for a second, but decided to ponder this thought later on. Probably tomorrow. "Alright, for real. Let's just talk about it. Crying, as I said, everybody feels like it sometimes," said Kuhisha. "Yeah," Simba said, not certain if Kuhisha was being serious.
When did you last cry? He said, probing territory he was sure Kahisha would try to avoid if he was just trying to get him riled up again. Kahisha thought about this question for a few seconds. I'm not going to tell you when I last cried, but I will tell you about one time when I did. Kahisha took a deep breath, only to quickly add, If you tell anyone about this, I swear you will catch these paws. Simba nodded, a tad taken aback. Then Kahisha took another deep breath and started talking. About a year ago, my mom had just arrived at the tribe and she was very grateful that Mufasa had allowed me as an unknown cub into the pride as well. I was trying to make some friends. There was a cub who was a tad younger than myself. A happy cub, so I wanted to talk to him. But before I approached him, I heard him talking to another cub. He was talking about how cool he thought his dad was. He kept on talking about the great things his father had taught him. I never really knew my dad. Any memories of him are too vague. I felt anger swell up inside me. It was as if that cub was mocking me for never having had these memories. Anger quickly gave way to sadness, and so I ran away until I found a cave where I could be alone. There I broke down crying, Kahisha said. Simba looked at him with interested eyes. Who was that cub? He asked with genuine curiosity. Kahisha kept quiet for a few seconds. It seemed like he was preparing an answer in his head, and then, without answering the question, asked, You gotta answer now. When did you last cry? Well, I guess, Simba said, trying to recall the day. It was... Then he remembered. He was hesitant. Could he actually trust Kahisha? What if Kahisha had made that story up and was just now waiting for him to tell a real one? Then, Simba feared, Kahisha might use this obtained knowledge to make him the laughingstock of the pride. Though Simba couldn't help but have an intuition that Kahisha had told him the truth. Something about the older cub's mannerisms. A lack of amusement, replaced with resentment in his voice. Alright, but don't laugh. It wasn't the most recent time either. About 3 months ago. Do you remember the tuft on top of my head being gone? Simba asked and Kahisha nodded. Yeah, what was up with that? Kahisha inquired. I asked Nala to do that. I wanted to go with the hunting party, so I thought I had to look like a lioness. I obviously was as much incognito as one would expect, meaning not at all. One of the lionesses pointed it out. She pointed me out in the crowd and said that I wanted to be a girl, but I just wanted to be part of the hunting party. Simba blushed just by the memory of it. I was embarrassed and I ran off crying. Held my tears in until I was out of sight, but then I cried like a baby. Unbeknownst to me, Nala had followed me and tried to calm me down. She gave me a hug and told me that she thought I was very brave for actually daring to try. I just thought I was a loser. Simba had stared at the stars while telling the story. So when he looked back at Kahisha, he noticed that the older cub had fallen asleep. But then again, it's not that important. Simba turned to the stars once more and felt a fresh breeze of the night rustle through his fur. There stood the stars, seemingly unmoving, like sunshine reflecting droplets of water high up above him. Always there, always shining. Simba lay down and fell asleep immediately. Igunya, who had been awoken by the cub's conversation but had not signaled so, was also returning to Morpheus' arms. Chapter 4. What did I tell you two about fighting? The sun stood firmly in the sky when Kahisha and Simba were awoken by Igunya. Rise and shine, there is a day filled with opportunities to enjoy. Sang spoke Igunya, much to the cub's detriment. There isn't much we can do in here anyway, said Kahisha disgruntled. Igunya adopted a mock cheerful attitude and said, Oh, but there is a lot to do. Like, oh, I don't know. Talk to each other and try to get to the bottom of the reason why you're here in the first place. Both Simba and Kahisha groaned. What about eating? Didn't you mention something about going to the waterhole for a snack? Asked Simba. Igunya nodded. Yes, that's right. We'll go when both of you are ready. Simba looked at Kohisha. Kohisha rolled his eyes and said, Whatever, if Princess is hungry, then I'll guess we should go. After all, we wouldn't want the Princess to faint of hunger, now would we? Stop calling me Princess, said Simba, once again visibly angry. Or what? You're gonna... Kohisha had to stop himself. His eyes grew wide in a mix of horror and realization. Disarmed. He had inadvertently disarmed one of his most effective taunts yesterday night. He couldn't just taunt Simba by asking him if he was going to cry, at least not without getting served a dose of his own medicine. Simba now knew a secret of his. Kohisha fumbled for words. Gonna throw up? He finally finished the sentence, making it sound more like a question. Throw up? Asked Simba, no longer angry, just confused. Well, alright then, let's go, said Igunya, disregarding the boys' bickering. On the way to the waterhole, Simba tried to discreetly talk to Kohisha. So, what was that all about? He whispered to Kohisha. I don't know what you mean, responded Kohisha, seemingly oblivious. Why would I throw up? It doesn't make any sense, argued Simba. Kohisha grew impatient. Just let it slide, Princess. I had a verbal slip-up, nothing more, he grumbled. You asked if I was gonna... Wait, you wanted to ask if I was gonna cry, but didn't you... Before Simba could finish his sentence, Kohisha pounced and pinned him down. The expression on Kohisha's face legitimately scared Simba. Kohisha was furious. Listen here, Kohisha said, and followed that statement up with a very hurtful slur. Yesterday, I asked you to shut it or else. Do you want to get some? He finished that question yet again with the same slur. Do you? Kohisha hissed through his clenched teeth, loud enough for Igunya to hear it. She turned around instantly, pushed Kohisha off of Simba, and held him down with her right paw. What did I tell you two about fighting? She asked sternly. Get off me, demanded Kohisha. Tell me why you attacked Simba just then, Igunya inquired. Kohisha shot Simba a glance of unwavering fury. Hey, look at me when I'm talking to you, young lion, Igunya yelled, getting Kohisha to face her instantly. Well, what got you angry? She said, looking sharply and semi-frighteningly into Kohisha's eyes. Kohisha was still breathing heavily. He felt immensely close to just emptying out his bladder. Igunya's look suggested no mercy. If he hadn't known any better, he would have thought she might have wanted to rip him apart right here on the spot. All the motherly warmth in her demeanor had vanished. He started, avoiding eye contact. Eyes, ordered Igunya. He quickly re-established eye contact. I was just, he stuttered, reminding Simba of a promise he ought to keep. Kohisha finished. What promise might that just be? Igunya didn't let loose. He promised not to tell something. Kohisha answered truthfully. Tell me what it was so that we can just get it out of the way now, or I'll start making promises neither of you won't forget, warned Igunya. A moment of silence passed. I got all day and quite a few ideas of how to get you to talk, Igunya reminded the two cubs. Both Simba and Kohisha were struck with fear. Neither of them talked, though. A good 2 minutes went by until Igunya just sighed and let Kohisha go. You know, I had hoped that you two could actually show some maturity, but you are both too childish to admit that you had a little personal talk last night. Kohisha and Simba reacted understandably surprised. They could only say in response. I unintentionally listened in on you two, Igunya clarified. Her face now softened again. All because you two feel embarrassed about crying, she went on. I don't feel embarrassed, pouted Simba. Don't even start. Neither of you would have had a reason to ask the other one not to tell anyone about it if you weren't embarrassed. There is nothing to be embarrassed about. And if you were to just take it with confidence, then you would know that. The look on Igunya's face had turned back to a motherly warmth. Plus, instead of talking about it and using it as a means to understand one another, you try to use it as blackmail against each other. These are stories over which you two could have bonded, Igunya said, looking first at Kuhisha, then Simba with disappointment. That shit is for... And then Kuhisha said that slur yet again. What was that? Asked Igunya. Nothing, said Kuhisha. You know, I've heard you use that word today quite often. Care to elaborate? Igunya asked. Kuhisha's eyes looked to the left and to the right in short, rapid succession. What's to elaborate? It's shit, that's for... And he repeated that slur yet again. You know, it's totally gay, he answered. Alright. Why does it need to be gay? Why do you equate gay with bad? Is there anything you need to talk about? She asked with one of her brows arched. What? No, he protested. What kind of a dumb question is that? I just think that talking about feelings is girly, Kuhisha added. Simba was observing this peculiar dialogue with amusement. It felt oddly satisfying to watch Kuhisha being backed into a figurative corner. Okay then, why is being girly bad? Your mum was once a girl, and so was I, yet you were at my mercy just a few minutes ago. Strange, isn't it? She said, knowing full well that Kuhisha would not have an explanation for any of that. Can we just get to the bloody waterhole already? Said Kuhisha in resignation. Alright, we can keep going, said Igunya, keeping her motherly tone. If you can tell me why you chose gay or girly as an insult. Kuhisha thought about this request for a few seconds. Can I tell it to you by out of Simba's earshot? He asked, trying to keep a self-assured voice. Alright, agreed Igunya. Simba, you stay here for a few minutes while I talk to Kuhisha, she ordered the prince. Can't you just tell it here? Simba asked. Confidentiality is something that your father will teach you hopefully soon. You stay here until we are back. It won't take long, I promise, said Igunya. Kuhisha and Igunya disappeared behind a nearby hill. Simba looked around and put on a mischievous smile and started to sneak towards the aforementioned hill. He had barely made 5 steps when he came to an involuntary stop, since his tail seemed to have become stuck in something. He turned around to find a paw holding his tail in place. It was Igunya, looking at him in amusement. She had snuck up behind him. Going anywhere, young prince? She asked. He just gave a sheepish smile. When I say stay here, I mean stay here. Eavesdropping is not staying here. Oh, and please keep in mind I'm a huntress. My ears are sharper than your dad's teeth, she clarified. Simba just nodded. Good, said Igunya. Then stay put until me and Kuhisha return. Igunya went back behind the hill. Simba sighed. What could they possibly be talking about? A few minutes later, both Kuhisha and Igunya emerged from behind the hill. Simba noticed that Kuhisha seemed a bit less angry than before. Alright, with that out of the way, I say it's time to go to the waterhole, said Igunya cheerfully. Chapter 5. Capable of anything. At the waterhole, Nala and her twin brother Mitu were in the middle of a heated debate. Well then prove it, demanded Nala. Alright, I will, Mitu spat back. Now, demanded Nala. Now? Asked Mitu. Yes, now, she stated with unwavering certainty. Alright, Mitu replied, somewhat unsure of himself. He stepped into the waterhole. He knew that it could get deep rather quickly, having seen it during the dry season. Once the water was up to his neck, he stopped, turned back, and asked his sister, You're gonna keep count, right? Yep, she assured him. Then Mitu took a deep breath and submerged the rest of his body completely. A moment later, Kuhisha, Simba, and Igunya walked into view over a ridge. Hey Nala, said Simba, positively surprised to see her here. Happy to see your little girlfriend, mocked Kuhisha. She's not, Simba started, getting cut off by Igunya. Hey Nala, how you do? She greeted Nala. Hey Igunya, Are you babysitting Simba and Kuhisha, or why are they with you? The young lioness inquired. We are not being babysat, protested Simba. Something like that, answered Igunya. Does it have something to do with the punishment the king has devised? Nala asked. Yet another chuckle escaped Igunya as she nodded. You are quite clever, Nala. Yes, this actually is the punishment, Din Lela Sabazavane, an ancient tradition dating back many generations. In essence, they have 3 days to talk things out, Igunya clarified. I see, said Nala. Nala was hesitant to approach Simba with a heartfelt hug. They had, although thus far mostly in secret, confessed their love for one another. Yet Simba had made it abundantly clear that he wasn't quite ready to display affection openly. The only people who knew about it were their parents and Nala's brother Mitu. Hey Nala, where's your fruity brother? Kuhisha just couldn't pull himself together, it seemed. Especially, though, when it came to his previous bullying targets. Kuhisha! Igunya shot him a stern look, implying things that only the two of them seemed to know. I'm sorry, Nala, I was just wondering why your brother wasn't here. He half-heartedly corrected himself. Before Nala could answer, and as if he had heard his name being spoken, Mitu resurfaced. Well, how long was I underwater? He asked while gasping for air. Kuhisha's motive for bullying Simba was a mix of jealousy and insecurity. Mitu, on the other hand, was very different. Being mostly quiet and rather timid in nature, Mitu had barely ever resisted any of the bullying. He just wasn't a fighter, and that was okay, but what he lacked in fighting skills, he made better in observational and communication skills. A born diplomat, his mother would often say. A born diplomat, if given the chance to talk, that was. His sister, too, had some good observational skills, but hers lay more in reading people's emotions and knowing when they were full of shit. Meanwhile, Mitu could question the logic behind what someone was saying rather well. Together, Simba knew better than anyone else, they could be frighteningly investigative. Maybe that was why Kuhisha had targeted Mitu. A leader, after all, rarely liked being undermined by a weakling. Once Mitu had caught sight of Kuhisha, he stormed out of the water and hid behind his sister, much to Kuhisha's amusement. Seems like your boyfriend isn't happy to see me, said Kuhisha, taunting Simba. Kuhisha, said Igunya yet again with the same tone of voice as before. Yet again he apologized. Oh, for fuck's sake. Simba, even if you two were together, which I don't know, it would be none of my business. Me too. I'm sorry about how I treated you. I was an arse. Simba looked at Kuhisha in sheer disbelief. Did you castrate him? He asked Igunya. Did you actually know what that means? Responded Igunya, somewhat astounded by Simba's question. No, said Simba, but my uncle always asks my mom this question whenever my dad is agreeing with her. Simba answered truthfully. Alright, you two stay here. Nala, you'll make sure they don't do anything stupid. I got a feeling they'll listen to you. I'll go hunt a gazelle. I'll be back in half an hour. With these words, Igunya ran off. Simba looked at Nala with nervous eyes and went over to her. So, what have you been up to today? He asked, trying not to have Kuhisha realize what was going on between them. Not much. I hung out with Mitu, and then you came by, said Nala, smiling with the kind of warmth that made Simba always feel woozy. Cool. A moment of awkward silence flew by. Are you two gonna huggy-wuggy or some shit? Mocked Kuhisha. God, do you ever shut up? Barked Simba, red in the face. Do you ever not get wound up over a bit of teasing, like you're such a baby? Parried Kuhisha. The big meanie Kuhisha made fun of me. He's a doo-doo head. I'll show him. Kuhisha kept on making fun of Simba, who once again became enraged. Please tell me this isn't what you two have been doing for the last 2 hours, sighed Nala, being baffled by the sheer display of immaturity on both sides. Simba didn't listen to her and mentally prepared himself to fight Kuhisha. You cut that out now, Kuhisha, or I will tear you a new one, he growled. Come and get some, baby boy, taunted Kuhisha. Simba was about to charge towards Kuhisha when Nala jumped in front of him. Simba, stop! This isn't going to accomplish anything. I want you to look me in the eyes and then tell me how you thought this was gonna end, she said. Simba opened his mouth just to close it again. Then he opened it again. Nala gave him a smug smile and then a lick on the muzzle. Yes, you were saying, she said with a chuckle. Nala knew that physical affection was still a mind-blower for Simba, so much so that it could help distract him. He started again. Are you two done making out? Said Kahisha as he approached. Simba was about to be riled up again. However, before he could even get one word out, Nala addressed Kahisha. Jealous? She said, putting on a mock smile. It wasn't hard for Nala to pick up the figurative playing figures of the verbal game Kahisha had kept Simba in check with. She knew how it worked, why it worked, and how to beat him. Aye, Simba, you scared? Or why is your girlfriend talking for you? Kahisha said, trying to get Simba back into the conversation, but Nala didn't let go. She slowly started to walk towards Kahisha. I asked you a question, Kahisha. Mind answering it? Or are you scared? Implications were significant moves in the verbal competition. The one who asks questions is the one who can make an implication about the opponent, thereby making them assume a defensive state of mind. With Simba, all Kahisha needed to do was simply put implication after implication and wait for Simba to be out of verbal defenses, at which point the prince was probably going to either attack him or run away. Both options would make Kahisha look like the winner. With Nala, however, things would be more complicated. Her pride wasn't easily wounded, and she couldn't care less about what Kahisha thought about her. Who would be scared of you? Kahisha retorted. Last time we met, you weren't too happy about me getting near you. In fact, you started to stutter. Am I wrong? Nala shot back with mockery as she kept walking towards him. Bah! Nonsense. You were annoying me. Plus, you got all touchy. Did you perhaps have a thing for me? He answered. Nala was still approaching. You are a bit too cowardly for my taste, she responded, now only a few feet away from Kahisha, who himself was getting nervous. What is that supposed to mean? He asked. Now Nala knew that the hunter had become the hunted. The game was hers to win. Simba is brave and strong, but easily wound up. Mito is smart and observant, however, averted to conflict. They are both easy to bully, Nala said. Yeah, so? Asked Kahisha, growing more weary. Nala was now face to face with Kahisha. No wonder you managed to establish yourself as a leader to a bunch of other cubs. They must think you are capable of anything. Yet the truth is, you are scared. I don't know why, but you are scared of me. Now why is that? She said. Her eyes reduced to slits as she stared into Kahisha's eyes with unwavering observation. In her eyes, Kahisha had become prey. Now she only needed to proceed with enough subtlety, and he would undoubtedly falter under the stress. She knew exactly what to say next. Chapter 6. The Secrets You Reveal. I don't know what you're talking about, Kahisha said, trying to calm his breath. Simba and Mito watched the odd display from a short distance. It was strange, to say the least. Sure, Simba had seen Kahisha being verbally cornered before, but Igunya was a full-grown lioness. Seeing Nala, a fellow cub, handle him seemed surreal. You are hiding something. Is it a crush, or... Nala guessed. Kahisha's eyes involuntarily glanced to the side, looking past Nala's right shoulder. Much to Kahisha's horror, Nala had noticed. She turned her head slightly to follow the approximate line of sight. She turned her head back. Really? She said in disbelief. Her tone of voice made it clear she had figured it out. She knew his secret. Don't, whispered Kahisha under his breath, trying hard to keep his posture. Nala looked at him with consideration. She could just tell on him, but then again, this wouldn't do. If anything, it would make things more complicated. Her eyes still stared at him like daggers held to his throat. Please, he added, sounding close to tears. Nala growled at him. All right, but remember the following. 'Cause I'm only gonna say it once. Kahisha swallowed hard and nodded. Then Nala leaned forward and whispered a warning into Kahisha's ears, a warning that made his eyes go wide. Alright, is that understood, Kahisha? She asked with a serious look on her face. Yes, I understand, responded Kahisha while avoiding her eyes in defeat. Good, she responded with coldness in her voice. Both Simba and Mitu had witnessed the conversation from afar, but they too felt intimidated by Nala's presence. Nala walked over to them with a happy smile on her face, as if nothing had happened. She joyfully went up to Simba and nuzzled him gently. He's going to be less of a douche from now on, she stated in a surprisingly factual tone. What did you tell him? Asked Simba, still stunned. Oh, you know, stuff, said Nala, giving Simba a playful lick on his muzzle. Hey, he said once again, slightly embarrassed. Mitu looked at Kahisha, who still kept his distance to the trio. He looks so distraught, almost sad, remarked Mitu. Serves him right. Nala, whatever you did to him must have been really effective, said Simba with a hint of schadenfreude. Maybe I should talk to him, pondered Mitu. Are you fucking serious? Just a few minutes ago he was making fun of you. Seriously, Mitu, I think it would be better if you leave him be until Igunya comes back, agreed Nala. I mean, yeah, but you two are here, so he's not gonna hurt me, reasoned Mitu, taking pity on Kahisha. I really think you should stay here, said Nala, with a hint of worry in her voice. Mitu looked at his sister, then back at Kahisha. He knew that it was ridiculous and probably a bad idea, but he couldn't help but feel sorry for Kahisha. He never liked to see anyone sad, even if they had hurt him. Right now, Kahisha looked mentally collapsed. An overabundance of self-esteem usually emanating from him, like moonlight in the night, was gone, hiding behind whatever sobering truth Nala had uncovered about him. He's not gonna hurt me. I just know it. Nala looked into her brother's eyes and saw strong certainty in them. A certainty as unbreakable as Pride Rock itself. Alright, but remember that Simba and I have your back should he get any stupid ideas, said Nala. Alright, said Mitu and walked over to Kahisha, who had now laid down and placed his head on his paws, gazing at some dirt. Hey Kahisha, said Mitu, putting on a friendly smile. What the fuck do you want, fruit basket? Said Kahisha, trying to sound condescending. You seem sad, said Mitu while walking around Kahisha to face the slightly older cub. Kahisha noticed Mitu's attempt at directness and turned to the other side, making Mitu walk back and forth. This somewhat amused Kahisha. So you're here to give me a cuddle or to make my boo-boo go away? Sneered Kahisha. I just thought you made like company, said Mitu with genuine concern in his voice. This irritated Kahisha quite a bit. I don't need your pity. Now get lost, he growled. Are you sure? You don't want to talk? You really seem... Mitu started. I said, growled Kahisha, now facing Mitu, giving him an angry look. Get lost, fuckface. Alright, responded Mitu in resignation. He was about to walk away when he turned around one more time and said, I forgive you. You know, for the bullying. You must have had your reasons. Better to run at something than away from it, right? Mitu gave a tired smile and walked back to Simba and Nala. Kahisha had turned back to face away from the trio. He tried to bury any emotional reaction of his as deeply as possible. His efforts proved futile as he felt a single tear rolling down his left cheek. A few minutes later, Igunya returned with a good chunk of meat. The cubs sank their teeth into it with no restraint. After they were done eating, Igunya spoke. Kahisha, Simba, you two will come back with me to the rock formation. Your friends won't follow us, obviously, she explained. Simba said goodbye to Mitu and Nala. Nala gave him a quick peck on the lips, much to Igunya's and Mitu's amusement. Kahisha didn't seem to notice. He was lost in his thoughts. Once Igunya, Simba, and Kahisha had returned to the rock formation, nothing much happened. Simba tried to start conversation with Kahisha to no avail. How am I supposed to finish this whole thing if he's not even reacting? Simba asked Igunya. Give him a bit more time. He'll come around. It was a strenuous day for him, answered Igunya as she once again took position on top of the formation. Simba just rolled his eyes. "Patience is a virtue, young prince," said Igunya with a smile.
"Ugh, that's what my dad told me too," sighed Simba.
"Well, if the king says it, it must be good advice," chuckled Igunya. The sun fell quickly beneath the horizon as all the stars of the savannah came out like glistening water drops in the distance. Once again, Igunya had laid herself in front of the stone formation entrance, effectively blocking it. Once again, Kohisha couldn't sleep. And once again, "Oi, Simba," he whispered to the younger cub, gently rocking him awake. "What? Fucking hell, Kohisha, what is it?" he asked, still half asleep.
"I need to talk to you,"
Kohisha said with a serious demeanor. Simba slowly got up. "Alright," he yawned. "But how about we go to the other end of the formation? Makes it less likely that Igunya is gonna listen in on us," Simba reasoned.
"Alright,"
agreed Kohisha. The two cubs went to the other side of the rock formation. "Now, what do you want to talk about?" asked Simba. Kohisha looked nervously down and then directly at Simba.
"Nala already knows this, and Igunya probably does too."
He swallowed hard. "Wait, do you actually have a crush on someone?" inquired Simba. Kohisha looked sheepishly at the ground. "You do?" asked Simba in disbelief. "Who?" he asked, now truly bent on having to know.
"You're gonna think it's really damn funny. I will probably regret telling it to you, but if I don't, it won't make things any better."
Suddenly Simba's eyes got wide in irritation and horror. "Do you have a crush on me?" he asked hesitantly.
"What? No," responded Kohisha instantly.
"Phew," said Simba in relief. "For a second there I thought..." Then he went wide-eyed again. "You have a crush on Nala?" There was a hint of aggression in Simba's voice.
"Calm down. No, well, not exactly. Let's just say I don't know what to make of her. And but she's not my crush,"
Kohisha responded. "Okay, then who is it?" asked Simba. Once again, Kohisha looked sheepishly away. He knew that the secret that he was about to reveal would make him extremely vulnerable. The once self-assured gang leader looked like a scared antelope in the moonlight, uncertain of many things and certain of few. He took a deep breath. I have a crush on me too," he finally said. End of Chapter 6. Chapter 7. Stars, Words, and Water. Simba looked at Kohisha in disbelief. "You're kidding, right?" he asked.
"No, I'm not. I have a crush on Nala's brother,"
Kohisha repeated. "But you bullied him constantly," argued Simba. "You called him all those names and made fun of him for being gay," he went on.
"The lady doth protest too much,"
countered Kohisha. "What?" Simba had no idea what Kohisha was saying.
"It's a figure of speech. It basically means that people who always bring up one specific thing as a negative are possibly doing so out of denial."
Simba still wasn't sure if he could follow. Meaning? Kohisha groaned.
"For example, say you kept on talking about how much you hate it when your mum gives you a bath. You mention it at every opportunity you get. After a while, people will start to notice that you might be saying this to sound cool and not because you believe it. Furthermore, they might suspect that you actually like getting a bath from your mum," explained Kohisha.
"But I don't like it when my mum baths me," argued Simba.
"That was just an example," elaborated Kohisha.
"Oh, I see," said Simba.
Then he thought about it for a moment.
"So you made fun of him and told him to fuck off because you liked him?" asked Simba, still unsure of what to make of that statement.
Kohisha nodded.
"He's so weak, so frail, so tender, he's so bloody nice. He's such a pansy. When he looks you in the eyes, all you see is goodness. Concern for everyone lives in his heart. Wanting him near you becomes a need, because when he's near, you feel like everything's going to be alright. And mercy on those who lay upon him. Mercy on me," finished Kohisha, snivelling quietly as tears rolled down his cheeks.
Simba said, not knowing what to do.
There?
He said while intending to put his left paw on Kohisha's shoulder, but ending up letting it hover rather than actually touch.
Moments like these weren't Simba's strong suit. Do you want, Simba hesitated, feeling rather irritated by the entire situation. A hug? Simba asked, more himself than Kuisha. Kuisha wiped his tears away and chuckled. He felt that Simba was rather uncomfortable with this emotional outburst.
Fuck, I'm sorry, Simba. You really aren't the right kind of person for tears. I get it. I normally don't know what to do in situations like these either, he explained.
It's not just that, Simba started. It's also the fact that you are crying. With anybody else, I could imagine that happening, but...
But what? You can't imagine me crying? But yesterday I told you about how I cried, said Kuisha in confusion.
Yeah, I guess so. It's just that I half expected you to have made that story up. You just seemed too cool to cry, explained Simba.
Too cool to cry? What on earth does that even mean? Asked Kuisha, looking at Simba with one eyebrow arched.
I don't know, it's just that I always saw you as...
Simba hesitated.
As a cool older brother, he finished, feeling kind of stupid now that he had said it.
What? Kuisha asked.
You're always calm and collected, or rather were, up until yesterday. I just wanted to be you, or at least be respected by you. You already managed to be a good leader all the time. You barely let anyone get to you, and I just wanted to have your respect. I guess that's why I care so much about what you think, Simba admitted. Not just to Kuisha, but in a way to himself. He wanted Kuisha to think he was cool, nothing more, nothing less. Respect might already mean a lot from those who like you, but it can mean the world from those who dislike you.
And here I thought I was the jealous one, remarked Kuisha.
What do you mean? Asked Simba.
The story I told you. You asked me who that cub was. You know, the one who made me unknowingly cry,
Kuisha said. Yeah, you said the cub was bragging about his dad and you felt like he was mocking you for never really knowing your father. What about him? Asked Simba.
That was you, Simba. You were so excited to tell everyone how cool your dad was. Still is. Who can blame you? A king of the Pridelands is your father. That is really cool. Not only that, but he truly cares about you. Not only as his heir, but also as his son. I wish I had even had a chance to know my dad, pondered Kuisha. It seemed like you just took it all for granted. The life lessons, the time spent together. I started to secretly despise you. It wasn't until I found some weaknesses of yours that I decided to start bullying you a few weeks ago. Why should you be happy all the time if I couldn't? He went on. Then it was me too, whom I despised because he dared not to get out of my head. It was so bloody nice. All the other cubs played it rough. Why couldn't he? So I targeted him. The only thing I dreaded more than your happiness or Mito's niceness was Nala. She opposed me, knew how to play me, and she was a girl. She just confused me. She and Mito are either something out of a dream or of a nightmare, finished Kuisha.
The two cubs didn't say a word for the next few minutes. Simba thought about what Kuisha had told him, and Kuisha waited for Simba to respond. Simba was about to say something when a single droplet of rain landed on his nose. Without the two cubs knowing it, the sky had become cloudy, covering the moon and the stars. More raindrops fell as it started to rain heavily. Igunya woke up. Simba, Kuisha, and Igunya sought shelter underneath a ledge of the rock formation. Well, that is rather unfortunate, remarked Igunya as she watched the rain pouring down with no end in sight. Anyhow, we'll stay dry here, she said and went back to sleep. A small puddle had started to form in front of the ledge. Both Kuisha and Simba couldn't sleep. However, neither of them were comfortable with the idea of having Igunya listen in on them talking about their feelings. Staring into the dark reflections in the small puddle as they thought about the last few days. The confessions given, the secrets revealed, The words spoken and the fears faced. The soft platter of the rain served as fertile ground for contemplation. A steady stream of thought, almost meditative in nature. Then Simba spoke again. Do you really, actually think that I'm a sissy? Kuhisha had called him that about a week ago. It had nagged Simba ever since.
What do you think? Do I believe that a cub who's willing to stand up for his friends, own up to his mistakes, and face me head on is a sissy?
Kuhisha said in mock obliviousness.
Let me think about that,
he added, stroking his chin. Hey, are you making fun of me? Asked Simba, now more playful in nature. Igunya had woken up yet again, though just as before she decided to stay quiet and observe.
Come on, Simba. I already told you what I think of you, although that doesn't mean that you're a bit too sensitive at times, he grinned.
I'm not... Simba stopped himself mid-sentence. Well, maybe I'm a bit quick to anger. My mom always tells me that I got this from Dad. I'm not sure if that's a good thing, he said.
You should work on that, or else you might get into trouble that's a lot less easy to get out of, said Kuhisha.
I guess so, agreed Simba. Then a rather amusing thought went through his mind, and he giggled.
What's the joke?
Asked Kuhisha. Oh, nothing. Just the thought of you and me two cuddling was really funny, Simba answered and kept on giggling, much to Kuhisha's irritation.
I mean, I thought about it before.
Kuhisha started, but was interrupted by Simba, who now couldn't stop giggling. He'll be like, oh, Kuhisha, you're so strong. Hold me. Then you can be like, don't worry, my little delicate dandelion, I'll... Only after Simba had said dandelion did he realize that he had made a pun. Simba now went into a full-on laughing fit. He would be your dandy lion. The prince of the Pride Lands was shaking with laughter, much to Kuhisha's annoyance.
Alright, jeez, I get it. It's funny because mushy stuff. So funny, he sighed.
Simba didn't even hear him. Dandy lion. Get it? Simba was rolling on the floor, gasping for air. That was until Kuhisha physically stopped him with his right paw. Simba slowly regained his composure. I'm sorry, he chuckled.
It's alright. It must be pretty funny. But you know what's even funnier?
Asked Kuhisha. What? Asked Simba, now breathing normally again.
The way you turn red as the savannah morning sun when Nala is close to you,
Kuhisha grinned. Hey, I don't... Simba started.
Oh, yes, you do. 'Cause you just want to cuddle waddle with your little girlfriend,
Kuhisha mocked. Ah, why do you need to make it lame? I don't cuddle waddle, protested Simba.
Well, I wouldn't call me to my dandelion, but you went there, reasoned Kuhisha with a sly grin.
Are you two done deciding which one of you is going to have the daintiest relationship? Said Igunya, much to Simba's and Kuhisha's surprise. How much did you hear? Asked Simba. Enough to know you like stupid puns, said the lioness as she got up. The rain had stopped. Igunya gave the two cubs a motherly smile and then sat down between them. I'm amazed. How come you two see eye to eye? The last thing I remember before falling asleep was seeing two young lions hating each other's guts. Now you two crack jokes like old friends. How did this happen? She asked with genuine interest. Kuhisha and Simba looked at each other.
We talked about...
Kuhisha started, but stopped as he shuddered at the next words.
Feelings,
he finished. What's about feelings? Asked Igunya.
It's so soft,
said Kuhisha. And girly, added Simba.
As well as dainty,
remarked Kuhisha. And totally gay. I mean, that's not a bad thing, but... Simba said.
It's just gay,
contemplated Kuhisha. Igunya didn't know if she should laugh or roll her eyes. Just a few seconds before, these two had almost shown great levels of mental maturity. Now they were back in the safety of their poser shells. Okay, I get it. You totally don't like feelings and stuff. You're all rough and tough, but assuming you actually learned something by talking about each other's feelings, what would that be? A long moment of silence passed by. I guess we learned why the other one was acting as he did, Simba guessed. Right. Why would that be? Asked Gunya.
Because, started Kuisha, you can't know someone or be known by others unless you open up.
The two cubs looked expectantly at Igunya, who kept her motherly smile. Congratulations. You two just finished the Indlela Zabazavane, she suddenly announced.
What?
Asked Kuhisha and Simba in confused unison. Well, not quite. You still need to finish it in the traditional way, which we will do tomorrow, clarified Igunya. Just like that, the lioness went back to sleep, leaving Simba and Kuhisha with confused looks on their faces. Chapter 8 of Brothers, Sisters, and Other Bonds.
What?
Said Kuhisha, still somewhat confused.
Was she serious?
He turned to Simba. I think she was. What did she mean by the traditional way? Simba replied.
I'm not sure. I'm not even sure if I want to know, said Kuisha. It's probably going to be some girly bullshit, hug it out in front of our parents or something dumb like that, he went on.
I'm not going to hug you. I had enough problems with patting you on the back just a few minutes ago, said Simba.
Maybe it's...
Kuhisha started, but was interrupted by Igunya, who had been awoken yet again. Maybe it's time you to go to sleep. You will see what the traditional way entails soon enough, she said, growling with impatience. But you're awake again. Can't you just tell us? Asked Simba.
Yeah, that would make things a lot easier, reasoned Kuhisha.
I could, but I won't, because I want to sleep now, and so should you two. Igunya's voice grew more forceful. But, protested Simba, go to fucking sleep right now, or I swear I will hold you two in a tight embrace you won't forget while forcefully singing you to sleep, she growled. This was not a hollow threat. It was a last resort reserved for only the most stubborn of cubs. It was degrading, annoying, and just something that most cubs wanted to avoid at all costs.
Forceful singing? How's that supposed to work? Inquired Kuisha.
Igunya rolled her eyes. You'll get to hear lullabies until your ass is fast asleep. Simple as that, she said with an odd pinch of menace. Lullabies? That's ridiculous. We're not little cubs anymore, said Simba in protest. Sure as hell could have fooled me, thought Igunya. Yes, lullabies. Thuba Baba, Thulasana, for example. So I advise you to lay down and close your eyes now, 'cause I want to sleep. But that's bull, started Kuisha, only for Igunya to start singing. Thula Thula, Thulasana, Thula. She sang with a river-like voice that somehow still conveyed a no-nonsense attitude.
Alright, jeez, I'm closing my fucking eyes, sighed Kuisha.
Thula, you're still talking. Said Igunya and kept on singing. Kuisha just gave an annoyed growl as an answer. Simba knew this song. His mother had sung it to him too many times to count. He hated to admit it, but it did calm him down considerably. Using a lullaby as a threat was something that, just a few months ago, wouldn't have made sense to him. It was only lately that he felt the urge to be treated more and more like a grown-up. He wanted to be seen as independent, he wanted to show his leadership skills, and he even wanted to show how much of a good hunter he was, though, in truth, he had to admit that he still felt lacking in all of these qualities. Overplaying insecurities with arrogance made him feel better. This made him, to a certain regard, more similar to Kuhisha than even he knew. Kuhisha was insecure as well, but his ego wasn't hurt as easily, and the burden of future responsibility didn't weigh on his shoulders with such severity. Right now, though, Simba forgot about this weight as Igunya's voice made him drift into Morpheus' arms in no time. The next morning came quickly, and without much fanfare. Rise and shine! Igunya's voice rang into Simba's ears as he slowly awoke. I've already informed your parents. The traditional ending ceremony will commence once we're back at Pride Rock, said Igunya, now a lot more cheerful than last night. She started to slowly make her way towards Pride Rock.
First she tortures us with lullabies, and she makes us get up way too early. I was really fucking happy once she stopped singing," complained Kuisha as he slowly got up.
"Yeah, totally," said Simba more reluctantly. A few minutes later, the group arrived at Pride Rock. Mufasa, Surabi, and Dumasu were already expecting them. "You are not to speak with your parents until the ceremony is finished. Understood?" asked Igunya. The 2 cubs nodded. "Now walk to the tip of the presentation platform," she ordered. The 2 cubs did as they were told. "Now repeat after me. Nafunda okuningi kue," she said. "Nafunda okuningi kue," repeated the 2 cubs. "Ufunda okuningi kim. Ngibona nametho ako. Uiabona nametho am. Manja ubonu nukusasile. Manja ngiabona nukuchatsile. Manja sibona nukutsatsile. Okutsula makube pezuvaku nam." Once the 2 cubs had repeated the last words, Mufasa stepped forward, his fire-like mane rustling in the wind.
"As it had been before, and as it will be many years from now, the Inlela Sabazavane has been fulfilled. It has created bridges where once there were none, bridges to gap grievances of brothers, sisters, and other bonds. As king, I hereby declare the Inlela Sabazavane to be complete. You 2 are free to go."
With a proud smile, the king looked first at Kuhisha, then at Simba.
"I'm proud of you, son," said the king.
"Thanks, Dad. But Kuhisha is the one who really deserves praise," said Simba, remembering a previous conversation with Kuhisha.
"Of course, Kuhisha, you 2 have shown some maturity, according to what Igunya told me. I am also very proud to have you as a member of my pride."
Mufasa gave Kuhisha a friendly smile.
Thank you, Your Majesty,"
Kuhisha answered with a distinct nervousness. Surabi and Dumasu stepped forth to welcome their sons back after 2 nights away from the den. "So it seems you 2 learned quite a bit about one another," said Surabi with her usual calm smile. "I guess so," said Simba. "But there's one thing I don't understand. I thought this whole thing was supposed to take 3 days to complete. So what gives?" "The 3 days are just the standard version. The 2 brothers from the legend took that much time, but that doesn't mean that anyone else needs that much time. You 2 finished earlier, as did your great-grandfather and his brother," explained Surabi. "I see. Hey, Dad," said Simba as he spun around to face his father.
"Yes, Simba,"
replied the king with a smile. "Did you and Uncle Scar ever do this ritual?" asked the prince with genuine interest. The king's smile faded.
"Simba," he said calmly, "I might tell you about this when you're older. It's not a nice story."
He took a moment to let this memory pass.
"As of right now, however, I would be more than interested to know how you managed to put your differences aside," he said, regaining his smile.
"Well, I mean," Simba hesitated. He wasn't sure how or where to start.
"Come on, Simba. It's not like anything is stopping Igunya from telling everybody anyways," reasoned Kuisha.
"We talked about stuff," Simba started. Should he mention his fears of disappointing his father? Should he lay bare his insecurities in front of his parents?
"Jeez, at that speed we're lucky to get going before the next dry season," joked Kuisha. "Let me just tell him. You can interrupt me anytime," said Kuisha, giving Simba a reassuring look. "We talked about the things that we feared, the things we liked, what we thought of one another, and eventually came to the conclusion that we aren't all that different. We just had different upbringings and different outlooks on life, despite our differences, however."
Kuisha took a second to breathe and chose his words carefully.
"I really like Simba quite a bit. He's like an annoying little brother whom you just can't help but give a hard time because the times when you're nice to him will feel all the better."
Kuisha was met with Simba's confused glance. Was that a compliment?" he asked, turning to his mother for reaffirmation. Surabi nodded with a motherly smile. Simba turned back to Kuhisha. "I guess I also gotta say something. I already told you that I look up to you like a big brother, despite all that mean stuff you've done during the last few weeks. I can't really blame you because I wasn't being more mature or anything. Maybe that's also why I like you, Simba finished with a confident smile. The two cubs gave each other an understanding look. Then Kohisha took a few steps forward.
You know what? You're my bro, and it would be a crime if you didn't get a hug from me,
Kohisha said with cockiness as he gave Simba a heartfelt hug. Whoa, I thought, Simba said in surprise.
Yeah, I thought that would be embarrassing too, but you know what? Screw it. There ain't nothing embarrassing about showing your little brother he is respected and appreciated,
said Kohisha, and he meant it. The adults gave an "ah," and Simba felt a solitary tear of joy roll down his left cheek. End of chapter 8.